My ex texted, "Raise the child support or I'll take you to court." I replied, "Go ahead." Then I showed my lawyer evidence she was hiding income and misusing the money. 72 hours later, her attorney was suddenly calling me to make a deal. I, 34M, never thought I'd be one of those guys posting on this sub, but here I am. The divorce was finalized 3 years ago, and I've been paying $1,800 in child support every month for our 2 kids since then. Never missed a payment, always on time. I've got a decent job in IT management, and while the payments stretch my budget thin, I've always believed in providing for my children. The custody arrangement gives me every other weekend and Wednesday dinners. Not ideal, but I make the most of my time with them. I've converted the spare bedroom in my apartment into a space they love, with bunk beds they picked out themselves and a small gaming setup we enjoy together. I try to be the dad who's present, not just the weekend fun guy. Last month, I got a text that made my blood boil. Need to talk about increasing child support. Kids' expenses are going up. $2,500 per month starting next month, or I'm taking you to court. No explanation. No discussion. Just a demand. I called immediately, trying to understand what changed. The kids need more activities, better clothes, and I'm struggling with the mortgage, she said. When I asked for specifics, she got defensive. I don't need to justify how I spend the support money. It's for the kids. Something felt off. My son had mentioned 3 times that his soccer cleats were falling apart. Yet when I offered to buy new ones, my ex said she'd take care of it. My daughter needed a new winter coat, but was still wearing the one from last year that barely zipped. Meanwhile, my ex had posted photos of her recent weekend trip to a luxury resort with her boyfriend. I replied simply, "I need to see documentation of these increased expenses before considering any changes." Her response was immediate. "Fine. My lawyer will be in touch. Enjoy paying court fees on top of the increase." That text was the catalyst. For months, I'd had suspicions but ignored them for the sake of peace. Now, I decided to dig deeper. I started documenting everything. I reviewed bank statements showing my consistent payments. I photographed my kids' worn-out clothes and shoes when they visited. I saved screenshots of my ex's social media showing expensive restaurant meals, designer purchases, and vacations, all posted within days of her claiming she couldn't afford the kids' basic needs. The turning point came when my daughter innocently mentioned, "Mommy says we can't tell you about her job at the salon because it's a secret." This was news to me. During our divorce, she claimed to be unemployed except for occasional freelance graphic design work, which was why I agreed to the substantial support amount. I hired a private investigator, an expense I could barely afford, but one that proved worthwhile. Within 2 weeks, I had documentation that my ex was working 30-plus hours weekly at an upscale salon, earning significant income including tips, all unreported during our support calculations. The PI also obtained evidence that she was subletting part of the house I was helping pay for through child support. When my lawyer saw the evidence, his expression changed from professional neutrality to something resembling excitement. "This changes everything," he said, organizing the documents into a folder. "She's not only hiding income, but potentially committing fraud." Instead of responding to her threat with anger, I simply texted back, "Go ahead with court. I'm ready." 3 days later, I submitted everything to my lawyer, who prepared a comprehensive response to her demand, including a countermotion to reduce my payments based on her hidden income and to investigate potential misuse of support funds. The kids came for their weekend visit, and I noticed my son's shoes were still falling apart. I took them shopping, not to spite their mother, but because they needed basics. My daughter got the winter coat she needed. My son got new shoes and clothes that actually fit. When they asked why they couldn't get these things at their mom's house, I simply said, "Sometimes adults have different priorities, but I'm always here to make sure you have what you need." Exactly 72 hours after my lawyer filed our response, my phone rang. It was my lawyer. Her attorney called. "They want to talk settlement." Immediately, the meeting was set for the following day. I took time off work and arrived at my lawyer's office prepared for battle. Instead, I found my ex's attorney looking uncomfortable, with a settlement proposal already drafted. The terms were surprising. My monthly payment would decrease to $1,200 based on her recently acquired employment. Additionally, we would establish a transparent system where major expenses for the children would be documented and shared equally between us, outside the base support amount. Most importantly, the agreement included a clause requiring financial transparency going forward, with penalties for hiding income or misusing child support funds. My ex sat across the table, avoiding eye contact. When her lawyer finished explaining the proposal, she finally spoke. "I was just trying to provide for the kids," she said quietly. "So am I," I replied. "That's all I've ever wanted to do." I signed the agreement that day. The reduction in payments meant I could finally start saving for the kids' college funds, something I'd wanted to do since they were born. That evening, I received a text from my ex. This isn't over. I didn't respond. Some battles aren't worth fighting. Update 1. It's been 3 months since the settlement, and things have been interesting. The new arrangement has been working well financially. The reduced payment means I can breathe a little easier each month, and I've started small college funds for both kids. The transparency requirement means we now share a spreadsheet tracking major expenses, which has eliminated a lot of the previous tension. But my ex wasn't kidding when she said it wasn't over. 2 weeks after our settlement, the kids came for their weekend with me looking unusually subdued. My daughter eventually told me that Mommy says we can't do as many fun things anymore because Daddy doesn't care enough to help. I explained as gently as I could that I was still helping, just in a different way, and took them for a fun day at the adventure park to show that nothing had changed in how much I valued our time together. The passive-aggressive comments continued. My son's teacher called me because he was upset at school, saying his mom told him they might have to move to a smaller house because Daddy won't pay enough anymore. I scheduled a meeting with the school counselor to discuss how to support him through this unfair emotional burden. Then came the scheduling mix-ups. Suddenly, my ex was forgetting our Wednesday dinners had been arranged, scheduling the kids for activities that conflicted with my time. When I'd arrive for pickup, she'd act surprised. "Oh, I thought you couldn't make it this week. They're at soccer practice across town." I documented every incident meticulously. My lawyer advised patience. This was typical post-settlement adjustment behavior, he said. As long as the financial arrangements were being followed, we should avoid escalating. The real test came when my daughter needed braces. According to our new agreement, this was a shared expense outside regular support. I immediately transferred my half of the initial payment. 2 weeks later, my daughter mentioned during our call that the tooth doctor said I have to wait longer for my braces now. I contacted the orthodontist directly and discovered my ex had canceled the appointment, claiming financial hardship. When confronted, she insisted she was gathering the funds despite having received my contribution. That weekend, I took my daughter to the orthodontist myself and rescheduled. I paid the remaining balance in full, keeping all receipts to reconcile later according to our agreement. When my daughter returned home with the first phase of her orthodontic work completed, my ex was furious. "You had no right to make medical decisions without consulting me," she texted. I responded with a screenshot of our agreement highlighting the clause about shared medical expenses and my documentation of having sent my portion weeks earlier. "I'm just following our agreement and making sure our daughter gets the care she needs." The response was silence, sometimes the loudest answer. Update 2. 6 months into our new arrangement, things took an unexpected turn. My company announced layoffs, and despite my seniority, I was among those affected. The severance package was decent, 3 months' salary plus benefits, but the job market in my field had tightened considerably. I immediately informed my lawyer about my change in circumstances. He advised me to continue payments as normal for my severance while actively job hunting, documenting every application and interview. If I hadn't secured new employment within 2 months, we could file for temporary modification based on changed circumstances. I also sent a straightforward email to my ex explaining the situation, assuring her that I would continue payments for now and keep her updated. Her response was surprisingly civil. "Sorry to hear that. Hope you find something soon." The civility was short-lived. The next day, she texted, "Just so you know, if you try to reduce payments again, I'll request full custody. The kids need stability." I didn't take the bait. Instead, I focused on my job search, taking the kids for our regular visits and maintaining normalcy. I didn't tell them about the layoff. No need to worry them. But I did scale back on some of our more expensive activities, opting for hikes, home movie nights, and cooking together instead. 3 weeks into my unemployment, I got a call from my son's teacher. Apparently, he had been telling classmates that he might not see Daddy anymore because Daddy can't afford to keep them. The teacher was concerned about his anxiety. When I gently asked my son about this later, he broke down crying, saying, "Mom said if you can't pay, the judge won't let us visit you anymore." I was furious, but kept my composure with the kids. That evening, I emailed my ex requesting a co-parenting conversation about not discussing adult financial matters with the children. Her reply was defensive. They asked why I was worried, and I was honest. They deserved to know if their living situation might change. Meanwhile, the job search was progressing. I had 2 promising interviews and a potential offer coming, though at about 15% less than my previous salary. I need to adjust my budget, but could make it work. Then came the bombshell. A former colleague reached out, saw your ex's post asking for recommendations for a shark lawyer to handle a custody modification. Thought you should know. Sure enough, when I checked her social media, There was a public post asking her network for attorney recommendations for a complicated custody situation where financial stability is a concern. I forwarded this to my lawyer immediately, along with screenshots of her thread about custody. He reassured me that temporary financial setbacks rarely justify custody modifications, especially when I was actively seeking employment and continuing payments. Still, he suggested gathering character references and documentation of my involvement in the kids' lives as a precaution. 2 days later, I received a job offer. The salary was indeed lower than before, but the position offered more flexibility and growth potential. I accepted immediately and updated my lawyer. Rather than telling my ex directly, I had my lawyer send a formal update about my employment status, including verification of the new position and salary. The message was clear. I was maintaining financial responsibility and stability despite the temporary setback. Her attorney responded with congratulations and a note that they would hold off on filing any motions at this time. The threat had been neutralized, but it left me with a deeper understanding of what I was dealing with. This wasn't just about money. It was about control and using the kids as leverage. Update 3. 1 year after our settlement, I received an unexpected email from my ex's attorney requesting a meeting to discuss some concerns about the current arrangement. My lawyer advised me to agree, but insisted on being present. The meeting was scheduled for the following week. I prepared myself for another battle, reviewing our agreement and gathering updated records of all payments and shared expenses. I'd been meticulous about documentation since the settlement, which was about to pay off. When we arrived at the meeting, I was surprised to see not only my ex and her attorney, but also a woman who was introduced as her financial advisor. This seemed odd for a co-parenting discussion. Her attorney began by stating that while the current arrangement had technically been followed, my ex was struggling financially and believed the support amount should be reconsidered given my recovered financial situation. Apparently, she had been tracking my career through LinkedIn and noted that I had received a promotion 3 months prior. My lawyer calmly explained that modifications typically require significant changes in circumstances, and my modest promotion didn't qualify. Furthermore, he reminded everyone that the original reduction was based not on my income, but on my ex's previously undisclosed earnings. Speaking of which, my lawyer continued, we've noticed some concerning patterns in the expense-sharing documentation. He pulled out the spreadsheet we'd been using to track shared costs, highlighting several entries where my ex had claimed reimbursement for expenses that seemed questionable. Private tennis lessons categorized as physical therapy, a family vacation with her boyfriend listed partially as educational enrichment for the kids. The financial advisor shifted uncomfortably as my lawyer presented bank statements showing my consistent contributions alongside evidence that some of the claimed expenses hadn't actually been paid yet, despite my ex having collected my share. We're not here to cause problems, my lawyer said. But transparency works both ways. My ex's attorney requested a brief recess to confer with his client. When they returned, the tone had shifted dramatically. Instead of pushing for increased support, they proposed maintaining the current financial arrangement but requested adjustments to the visitation schedule, specifically reducing my Wednesday evenings due to the kids' increasingly demanding activity schedules. I had been prepared for financial demands, not this pivot to limit my time with the children. Before I could respond, my lawyer asked for documentation of these activities, including registration forms, schedules, and receipts. The uncomfortable silence that followed told us everything. Many of these demanding activities either didn't exist or had been scheduled specifically to conflict with my parenting time. I think we need to take a step back, my lawyer suggested. Perhaps what we really need is a more comprehensive review of how the co-parenting relationship is functioning overall. To my surprise, my ex spoke up directly for the first time in the meeting. The kids are confused by the back and forth. They need more stability. I agree completely, I said, seizing the opening. Which is why I'd like to propose moving to a true 50-50 custody arrangement. The shock on her face was unmistakable. This had never been on the table before, not because I didn't want it, but because I had been told repeatedly during our divorce that her role as the mother made her the natural primary caregiver despite my equal involvement in their lives. That's completely impractical, she stammered. Your work schedule has changed significantly, I finished. My new position allows remote work 3 days a week, and I've already discussed potential adjustments with my manager if a more equal parenting schedule became possible. Her attorney tried to regain control of the conversation, but the dynamic had shifted. My lawyer presented a draft proposal for a week-on, week-off schedule that would provide the stability the children supposedly needed while giving them equal time with both parents. And of course, my lawyer added, with equal parenting time, child support would be recalculated accordingly, potentially eliminating the need for monthly payments entirely depending on the income differential. The financial advisor, who had remained largely silent, finally spoke up. That might actually create more financial stability for everyone involved. My ex requested time to consider the proposal. We agreed to reconvene in 2 weeks, with the current arrangement continuing in the meantime. As we left the meeting, my lawyer gave me an approving nod. "You know she'll fight this," he warned. "I know," I replied. "But for once, I'm fighting for something instead of just defending myself." The battle isn't over. It may never be completely over when co-parenting with someone who sees the children as leverage. But for the first time since our divorce, I feel like I'm not just reacting to her moves. I'm making my own, focused on what's truly best for our kids. 2 days later, I received a text from my ex. "We need to talk privately about this new proposal." I replied simply, "All communications through attorneys, please. This is too important to risk misunderstandings." The kids came for their weekend visit, and as I watched them laughing together while building a fort in the living room, I knew that whatever battles lay ahead were worth fighting. Some things are worth standing your ground for, and my relationship with my children tops that list.